I'm an addict. My name's Wallace.
Hey, Wallace.
If I uh, if I forget if I if I forget what I am, who I am doesn't matter. You know. Thanks for the introduction, and I want to thank the committee because sometimes we hear that sometimes we hear that service is a thankless job, you know, and it doesn't have to be, you know. So I kind of urge you to, when you see some of the committee members around and people that are responsible for, you know, pulling this thing off, give them a hug and thank them, you know. Service doesn't have to be thankless, you know. But, and I want to thank them for taking the risk to ask me to, you know, to come out and share. My topic is starting over clean. And the reason I chose that topic is because I got clean in Baltimore. And 10 years into my recovery, I moved to LA, and been living there for I lived there for 25 years, and then I moved to South Carolina, you know, and I stayed there for several months, and I am now staying in Cincinnati, you know, so I know a little bit about having to start over, you know, and being clean. A lot of times we hear a lot about starting over when people relapse, starting over when people lose their clean time, you know, but, and the common denominator, you know, in that whole process, I'm a person that believes the process is perfect. I am imperfect, but the process is perfect. And you know, it forms the man that that you see today and the man that I'm going to become, you know. And a lot of times in that process, I can be real resistant of some of the things along that path, you know. I didn't really want to move to Cincinnati, you know. I'm 70 years old. I've been retired for 2 years after working in treatment for 25 years, and I'm living with my daughter, you know. Yesterday, which was the 6th, my divorce was finalized, and my wife and I had been together. My second wife had been together for 15 years, you know. So yeah, I didn't really want to be 70 years old living with my daughter, you know. Sometimes it's not what I want, it's what I need, you know. And it really was a move that I really needed to, you know, to do. I'm glad a lot of times I don't get what I want around here. I don't know if I'd be clean if I got what I wanted around here, you know. But my needs have always been met. I am the architect of most of the pain that I go through in life, you know. But yeah, this process has been perfect, you know. I get a chance to spend some time with my grandkids, and that's a blessing, you know. I haven't been. I have 3 children, and my oldest son And Wanda remembers when I used to bring him around to meetings, he was a little thing. My oldest son was like 3 days old before I'm unavailable, when I'm using. I'm totally unavailable, you know. I say I'm gonna be there at 3, but usually the bag comes first, So most of the time I don't even make it, I don't even show up, So my oldest son was 3 days old before I ever laid eyes on him. Totally unavailable, you know. My I was using, you know. My daughter, who I live with now, uh, when my wife at the time went to deliver, the uh, the doctor said the magic words. And when she was pregnant, I went to Lamar's classes, and Lamar's and heroin works good together because it's all about relaxation, And they gave me a certificate saying you're going to be a good daddy. And when she went to deliver, the doctor said the magic words, said that's going to be a little time before she actually delivered. And I thought, I got time. When my daughter was born, I was at a shooting gap, totally unavailable, totally unavailable. Uh, my youngest son, I was going to meetings, wasn't going to the Mars classes, I was just coming around here going to meetings. I was new, and when he was born, I was in the delivery room. That taught me then that it verified what you told me. If I do what I'm supposed to do, I'll be where I'm supposed to be when I'm supposed to be there. So yeah, I was right there in the living room and I watched him come into this world. And and I was at the beginning of this process. I've been blessed to have a good relationship, with my kids. Direct result of coming around here, direct. I've grown up in Narcotics Anonymous, even though I was 35 years old when I came around here. I was 35 when I came around here. I'm 70 years old now, and I've been clean longer than I used, and I've been clean more than half my life. I remember somebody shared that one time about being clean longer than they used, and that just I never thought I'd say that. Truth is, I never even thought I'd be at a speaker fest, with speakers 30 years or more. When I got clean, I think the person in our area that had a lot of time had like about 3 years, and that was a lot of time back then, I ran across a meeting schedule in an area that I got clean in. We had a meeting a day, and on Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays we had 2 meetings. Now I think they have like over 400 meetings in that area. So this thing is imploded. I had no idea what this process was about. And if I did, I probably wouldn't have signed up. What I knew was I knew people that was coming, to the meetings, and they were different. First of all, they looked different. My best friend came around, and he was my best friend for almost 50 years, and I gave him his first shot of dope. He took me to my first NA meeting, so we helped each other get here. And he looked like he just gotten out of, in my neighborhood, if you picked up some weight, you're a little buff, you got some clean clothes on, and you've been locked up. Somebody, something else has managed your life. And he looked different, and he talked about this organization. Uh, so I started coming to the meetings, because I wanted what he had, you know. Uh, if I could, and I knew nothing about this thing. The principles that I've been exposed to around here, I'd heard these principles before. Matter of fact, I heard them in my household. I just never practiced it. So some of this stuff wasn't new to me, but it was new in terms of my participating in it. So it was, I always wanted to be, I actually always wanted to be a man, you know, and I always wanted to be a good father, you know. And I never, I was an addict that cared. I didn't like taking advantage of people. I did it, but it wasn't something that I liked doing, you know. So it was like, there's a clinical expression called characterological conflict. And it means that my behavior was in direct conflict with my value system, you know. And, I'd do something and that little voice would say, you were not raised like that. You were not taught that. And I constantly had that conflict when I was using. So when I came around here, I had the opportunity to learn how to, practice, some of those principles. And with practice, I slowly got better. With practice, I slowly got better. So, starting over was something that, first of all, when I came around here, I was starting over. I had to learn how to live drug-free, and that was definitely a brand new start. And I wasn't sure if I could do it because I associated using with almost anything that was pleasurable in my life, And so the question I always had was, we don't use nothing? I always ask that question. This whole thing about being abstinent, eluded me, man. I was like, I know we can do something, and to practice a drug-free life was, was something I didn't really, I didn't really relish attempting to do, because I didn't think that, I didn't think there was any benefit in it. A lot of the defects that I have had, I always perceived it to be a benefit in it, and it wasn't until I could remove the benefit, I was willing to, work on those defects, So this guy walked into this brain shop, to purchase a brain, and so he asked the proprietor, he said, how much is that brain on the first shelf there? The proprietor said, that brain belonged to an anthropologist, $10,000. He said, what about the one on the second shelf? He said, oh, that brain belonged to a neurosurgeon, $25,000. He said, what about the one on the top shelf? He said, that brain belonged to an addict, $100,000. He said, why is the addict brain not as much as the anthropologist's brain and the neurosurgeon's brain? He says, easy. He says, brand new, never been used, And that's not completely true, because we did have, a lot of survival skills and sometimes could make something out of nothing, But in terms of things that I needed in order to become this responsible member of society, a lot of the information I had, had nothing to do with that, When I got clean, there was really no market for people that could transform a Marine dropper, into a set of rigs, there was really no market, you know, to learn how to strip down an extension cord to unjam a set of tools, you know. So a lot of the, you know, a lot of the information I had, a lot of it was, you know, misinformation, you know, that I was working with. So I embarked on this new way of life, and what I got to do, man, I got to get some new information, and I have to, you know, practice this new way of life. Practice it. And sometimes, sometimes sometimes I stumble. You know, I have, and sometimes I don't like to admit this. I have probably demonstrated every behavior, with the exception of using, in recovery that I did when I was using. You know, and I struggled for a while. You know, I still wanted to. There was a guy named Lily, who actually Lily was from Atlanta years ago, and because I wanted to be slick, you know, and be in recovery, you know. And Lily used to always tell me, he said, Wallace, you slick. He said, but your L is missing, you know. And I had to think about that, man, you know. And, you know, so I had to kind of surrender to the fact that I really need to start practicing something differently, you know. And so when I moved from, I can be a runner too. You know, sometimes my moves were legitimate in terms of conditions that just really warrant that I needed a new environment, you know. But you know, sometimes I would run, you know. And in terms of relationships, a lot of times it wasn't so much that it wasn't so much that I was worried about my getting burned, you know, or my being abandoned, you know. I was more concerned about the damage that I would do in the relationship, you know. So a lot of times it wasn't fear of you, it was fear of myself, you know. So when I moved from Baltimore to Los Angeles, NA was there. I had a family right there, you know, waiting for me, you know. And that's going to be the common denominator with a lot of the times I've had to start over and I've had to move to different places, you know. This fellowship was right there waiting for me, you know. About 15 years ago, I went to Japan, and I went there and I didn't even speak the language, you know. NA was right there, you know. I remember going to the only English-speaking NA meeting in Tokyo, you know, and NA waiting for me, you know, arms extended, you know, and that's been my history since I've come around, you know. I have had a number of health challenges, you know. A few years ago, I had a kidney transplant, you know, and members of this fellowship came to me. I remember this guy in my home group who, you know, I didn't really have a real close relationship with him. Came to me one day and said, I'm going to test to see if they can use my kidney for you, you know. And he said, and if I'm compatible, he said, you can have my kidney, you know. That's a, you know, sometimes I've been around here a while, and I think I've experienced love at the you know, at the max, you know. And then something will take place around here that it just completely blows me away again, you know. And a few members of fellowship came to me and offered me a kidney. You know, I had everything my sponsor had. When my sponsor had a kidney transplant and came out of surgery, I was there. When I had kidney transplant and came out of surgery, you know, he was there. You know, everything he has, I had. I always tell him, I said, if you come up with anything new, let me know so I can kind of prepare myself. You know, and and thank God, because when I went through that process, man, he was right there to hold my hand, walk me through it. And thank God that I was willing to allow him to do that. Sometimes I'm real good at being there for you, but I sometimes can fall short with allowing you to love me and to help me. I'm learning and I'm getting better. I had to start over. When I found out I had end-stage kidney disease, my lifestyle changed. I found myself having to go to dialysis for a number of years. Addiction prepared me for dialysis, because they would put this long needle in me, and which I'd been doing for a long time myself, and his fellowship supported me. Nurse asked me one time, she said, "What do you do for a living?" She said, "Because you could, I've never seen anybody get as many visitors as you get, And she said, "Are they all family?" I said, "Yes, they are, they're all family," and walked me through it. My kidney came from a cadaver kidney from Mexico, and I got the transplant when I was living in LA, and I got my transplant on Cinco de Mayo, So my friend came out and visited me. He said, "I got good news and bad news." I said, "Give me the good news first." He said, "You got an excellent kidney." Hispanic guy too. He said, "You got an excellent kidney from my home country." I said, "Thank you." And I said, "What's the bad news?" He said, they're gonna probably ship you out of the country in about another 2 months. I said, "Man, don't make me laugh." So since I've been clean, my needs have been met. My needs have been met. And a lot of times not in a way that I would have predicted. Like the guy that offered me the kidney. He's probably the last person in the world I thought would do that. But my needs have been met. The next time I had to start over was when I moved from Los Angeles. I really needed a level of health care that wasn't being provided at the time, and my daughter wanted to take care of me, which I resisted for a long time. My sponsor said it was a good move. My wife and I were having problems. We were in the process of getting a divorce, and and my daughter, was willing to take care of me, and I resisted that for the longest time, and then I finally surrendered, She called me one day and she said, and this was the daughter I said earlier, when she was born, I was in a shooting gallery. I thought I had time, and she told me, she said, "I know you don't want to move out here with us," She said, "because I know you, Daddy, and you think you're going to be in a position," and she went through the whole spiel. She says, "My husband and I love you, and we want to take care of you, And she said, "And you need us to do that, And she convinced me, and I'm living with her now, Not that I want to. I don't want to be 70 years old living with my daughter, I want to be independent, But the truth is, I'm not ready yet. Sometimes I get into denial. Sometimes I start feeling good. I start feeling my oats. I think I'm well. Just like in the fellowship sometimes, I stay clean for a while and things are going good. And I won't say it, but I think I'm well. I think I got this thing, Here's what I thought. I thought the longer I stay clean, the more I know, the less I'd have to do, And what I'm finding is, and this is the truth. I need you as much now as I've ever needed you. I've gone through struggles since I've been around here, and there's no way I could have made it without you. No way. No way. I rely on this fellowship. Here's 3 minutes. Okay. All right. No. He running this. So I'll keep it short. Each time I've had to start over, you've been there. When I went to South Carolina, I really didn't want to go to South Carolina. And I think there's a gentleman here that I saw. I was glad to see him because he was part of the fellowship down there that took care of me. I didn't want to go down there. I said, I don't want to go down there with the rednecks, man. They're going to, I had this perception of how I thought it was going to be. And let me tell you, I went down there and it was an abundance of love down there. And they embraced me and took care of me. 10 minutes? Okay, all right. Okay. All right. I'm going to listen to you. Okay. But each, what I wanted to say was each step of the way, this fellowship has been there, and the level of love in this fellowship blows me away. Completely blows me away. The other thing I've had to remember when I had made those moves and had to start over, I had to remember my responsibility, because I was taught we have a responsibility around here. I was a shoplifter, and I didn't want to come around here and just take and take and take from the program and not give anything back. My home group is Stepped Into the Heights, and it's in Lincoln Heights in Cincinnati. I meet every Monday at 6:30. So that responsibility, because we were in a discussion the other day about whether we chose this path or were we chosen, and there was a lot of different opinions about that and, dialogue about that. I would not have chosen this path had I known what it entailed. If I really knew, I don't know if I would have made that decision without experiencing it, And I remember my first sponsor giving me this thing, and it said, it talked about if our higher power, if God spoke to us, and it said, into your weak and feeble hands, I've entrusted a power greater than estimate. To you have been given that which has been denied the most learned of my fellows, not to scientists, statesmen, not to wives or mothers, not even to my priests and ministers have I given this gift of healing of the addicts, which I entrust to you. It must be used unselfishly. With it comes grave responsibility. No day can be too long, no demands upon your time too great, no case too pitiful, no task too hard. It must be used with tolerance, because I've restricted its membership to no particular race, creed, or denomination. Ridicule you must expect. Your motives will be misjudged. You must be prepared for adversity. For what men call adversity is the ladder you must use to ascend the rungs towards spiritual perfection. I shall not ask of you beyond your capabilities. You were not selected because of your special talents. And be careful, should success attend your efforts, not to subscribe to personal superiority, that which you can lay claim only by virtue of my gift. If I wanted learned men to accomplish this mission, it would have been given to the physicians or the scientists. If I wanted eloquent men, there are plenty that would lined up for the task. For talk is the easiest use of all the gifts with which I've endowed mankind. If I wanted scholars, the world is filled with better qualified than you. You were selected because you're the outcast of the world, and your long experience as addicts has made or should make you humbly alert to the cries of the stress of the lonely hearts of addicts everywhere. Think not because you have been clean for 5 years, 10 years, or 30 years that it is the result of your unaided effort. That which has kept you clean will continue to do so just as long as you follow the path that I have mapped out for you. Beware of the pride that comes from growth and insidious comparison with material organizations whose success depends on money, property, and prestige, which is not of your lot. Success of material organizations depends on the pooling of joint assets, yours from the humble admission of weakness. Their motto is, he profits most who serves best. Yours, he serves best who seeks no profit. When they take their inventory, it is measured by what they have left. When you take your personal inventory, it is measured by what you have given. And I have to continue to remember that, you know. Thanks again for listening to me, and enjoy the rest of this weekend unless you've made other plans.